Hi, and welcome to Enchantment of Eternity's review for Humans Season 2, Episode 5. This video is a part of a series of videos where I review episodes of Humans, so I'll start out with giving a spoiler warning for Humans up to Season 2, Episode 5. If you haven't seen up to this point, you may not want to watch this video, otherwise some things may be spoiled for you. So if I were to assign a theme to this episode, it would seem to be sense being soured to humans, or sort of increasing the divide between humans and sense. As the nanny synth leaves its human owners to be with another synth, Niska stages a prison break and breaks away from humans. Karen leaves her human partner. Mia has to break away from the human she thought she loved. Odie leaves his human family and goes out on his own. And the Hawkins spend a day in a town without sense, and Hester kills another human being. So it's quite an interesting theme, and I do believe that it's a particular theme in this episode, but it could also be the result of the story arc of the season, as this could be considered the second act of the season, where things get really bad for everyone and our characters have to build themselves out of this hole. And if you see, the goal of this series is to have a positive human and sense relations, then this episode is probably where this goal is the furthest away from achieving it, and it's the hardest to achieve. So let's start with Dr. Morrow, as all the pieces are falling in place with her. Last week we got the revelation that she was trying to transfer human consciousness into synth bodies, and it didn't even occur to me that this is what she was trying to do with her daughter, who is in a vegetated state, and that's why she refused to give permission to let her pass. However, in this episode, she passes away anyway, which of course crushes Dr. Morrow because she'll no longer have the chance to transfer her consciousness. However, we get the revelation that the artificial intelligence V that she talks to is actually based off of a brain scan of her daughter, so in a sense, it is her daughter. This kind of reminds me of something I saw in Black Mirror. Anyway, it's interesting and an interesting revelation, and it certainly explains why she cares about V so much. So while we're on the subject of Dr. Morrow, for the majority of this episode I was convinced that she would become the next villain, but with the ending revelation I am not so sure, as she seems to be defying these silo people, and it seems like she will eventually turn against them, but we'll see. So Mia/Anita's storyline is turning out to be more interesting than I suspected, as it seems kind of cliche before, but not only has it gotten interesting, it kind of in retrospect justified the scenes we got with her before. As in the previous episodes, we got this picturesque romance where everything seemed to be peachy and they were in love, but turns out Ed doesn't really consider her a person and would rather sell her off for money. Again, this speaks to poor sense human relations. I'm not sure how much it actually speaks to how much of an asshole Ed in particular is, but more to how sense are viewed overall. Anyway, this scene was intense, especially when Mia just grabbed him and started choking him. That is not what I expected. It seems though that she managed to upload herself somewhere. I'm still not entirely sure what happened, but I am sure that we haven't seen the last of Mia, and I will be interested to see where this goes from here. I'm sure this whole experience has probably soured her to humans, whereas she had always had a very positive view of them in the past. We also get a side plot with Toby hitting on that teenage synth Renee. I haven't talked about this in the previous episode reviews, as I thought this storyline was rather silly. However, it does get a bit interesting in this episode when Rennie seems to be rejecting her human behavior, even though it keeps reasserting itself. And Toby, of course, refused sex because he didn't want to be seen as a creep that takes advantage like his father was. But when Rennie just took it as rejection, so that's quite an interesting setup as well. And we also get more of this side plot with Sophie, trying to act like sense. This storyline I still find very boring. It's not unrealistic, as children do stuff like that all the time. When I was a kid, I had a friend who was so obsessed with shows and books about robots, he would often act like a robot and eventually even changed his name to Chip, which was the name of a fictional robot character from some novels. So I totally buy this storyline. It's just not all that interesting, and I really don't see the relevance to the rest of the series, and it just feels like a waste of time. But maybe I'm wrong, and they're actually going somewhere with it. I really hope so. So the opening scene with the nanny sense gaining consciousness was great. I absolutely loved it, and I was hoping we'd get more sense becoming conscious, and I do hope to that we get more. And I also hope to see more of this synth. It does seem like this is Max's new friend and someone that seems to be has a very cheery demeanor, just as he does. I find it interesting that this nanny sense also has a sunny disposition. I suppose it shows how big of an effect the sense were treated on before they came consciousness affects the person that they will be once they gain consciousness. And so it's interesting that a synth who is more used to a social environment is more sort of lighthearted, whereas a synth like Hester, who was used in a factory, has a more rigid and dreary disposition, and that's pretty interesting. So it is interesting that Max broke off from Hester and Leo's getting a bit gung-ho about this mission. So I am starting to think that Leo will eventually regret what he's doing. It's fascinating when they came across the woman that killed their other seventh friend, and Hester flat out told Leo she was going to torture her, basically, and Leo was okay with this as long as there was no permanent damage, and Hester told him there wouldn't be. But as we soon discover, she's lying and actually killed her. So I'm not sure Leo is. So I am sure that Leo is not going to be okay with this, and he's bound to find out eventually. But they do have a lot of valuable information, so it will be interesting to see what they do with that. What was also interesting was the sex scene with Hester and Leo. It does really make me wonder, though, if Hester is simply manipulating Leo, as in an earlier scene when talking about men having sex with synths. Leo talks about men who convince themselves of what they want to be true. It makes me wonder if that's was just setting up for what's going to happen here, and that everything Hester says was an act. I'm still really uneasy about Hester, as we see she's lying, but I think it's still possible she was actually being sincere when she was talking about her desire to explore her own feelings, but we'll see. So Maddie came up with a way to modify the program that makes sense conscious to do it instantly instead of gradually, but she wanted Leo's help and so reported a sense becoming conscious to attract his attention. But I'm actually curious who will respond, because at the moment it seems like Leo is more worried about infiltrating the silo, and Max is responding to this sort of thing. But I think Maddie would be better off with Max, as Leo is likely to do something stupid with it, perhaps try to start a violent revolution, whereas I think Max would be a bit more wiser about it, but we'll see. So finally, we come to Niska's storyline, and this was fascinating indeed, as we get the reveal that this was all a test for the humans. As I love the line where Laura tells Niska, this was your chance, and her response was, no, it was theirs. So it seems to me this was all a test all along to see if humans could ever accept conscious sense, and apparently Niska read their lips and could tell the whole thing was rigged for her to lose, and the system is corrupt. So I really fear what her next action would be. If she'll take some sort of Matrix or Terminator style of retribution, well, judging on the tone of the show overall, I don't think that will be the case, as that sounds a bit harsh. But it does seem things are spiraling out of control, and I do think her next move will be a measured one and a powerful one. But I just can't wait to see what it could be. They wouldn't be kill all humans or something like that, as with her interactions with Laura proof she still cares about her and thinks that she's a good person. And of course, there's still the matter of her girlfriend. But it's the authorities she has no trust in, so whatever she's planning, I'm sure it will affect them most, but we'll see. So my rating for Humans Season 2, Episode 5 out of 10 is a 9. Excellent. This episode certainly picked up the pace and turned what I thought was a silly, slow storyline that even made them interesting, as everything seemed to be falling into place. Yet there is still hope, so I absolutely can't wait for this to be resolved. So that's it for my review on Humans Season 2, Episode 5. Be sure to check back here as I continue to review episodes of Humans. Also be sure to check out my channel for many more reviews on shows like Game of Thrones, Star Trek, The Walking Dead, Vikings, and more. So be sure to subscribe so you can keep up with all of that. And thanks a lot for watching.